Move it.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, it's being recorded now. Let's get started with roll call. And so Director McCombs, see Director McCombs, Director Morgan, there's Director Morgan. Let's see, Regional Forester Frank Bem, or Deputy Regional Manager Buchanan or John Ring. Is the U.S. Forest Service here? Oh, there's John.
Yeah, BLM.
Okay, with the BLM. Okay, good to see you, John. Is anyone with the U.S. Forest Service here, though? Okay, seeing none. Frank Falzone.
Frank cannot make it today, so this is Gene Bakehouse. I was sitting in for him.
Great, thanks for joining us, Gene. Samantha Albert.
Here, thanks, Dan.
Thanks. Council Member White Skunk. Commissioner Layden. I see Commissioner Layden online. Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Present. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Tisdale. See you been there.
Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. Commissioner Cooper.
Morning.
Good morning. Good to see you, Hillary.
You too.
And Dan, I'm on. Good to see you. I had a problem with my audio there. This is Abe from Douglas County.
Yeah, thanks, Abe. Appreciate it. Ethan Burchholz.
Dan, FYI, Ethan emailed me. He's at the airport, so he may jump on later, but he also may not.
Okay. Brett Wolk.
Hello, good to see everybody.
Good to see you. Christina Burry.
Good morning.
Good morning. Amy Moyer. I see Amy. Good morning.
Here. Good morning.
Mark Morgan. I don't see Mark yet. I see Paige Lewis. Good morning, Paige. Carol Walker. Okay. Julie Stencil.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie. Christy Belton.
I'm here. Good morning.
Hey, Christy. Pat Dorsey. I don't see Pat yet. Scott Jones. I don't see Scott yet. Representative Cutter and Representative Quorum.
I'm here.
Okay, Representative Cutter, good to see you online at least.
Yeah.
And then Senator Quorum. Okay, no Senator Quorum. So Angela Courtney, do we have quorum? I think we do.
I think we do too. Courtney, have you been tallying or should I do a quick count?
Yeah, we have quorum.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Now, does anyone have any proposed changes to today's agenda? Okay, seeing none. I have to leave a little bit before 9 today. So once I leave, I'm going to turn over the gavel, if you will, to Director McCombs to help chair the meeting. But what I propose that we do is switch the order of items 3 and 4 to vote on the annual report first, and then we can get to other updates from the Wildfire Matters Review Committee. Does that sound okay to everyone? Yeah, thumbs up. Okay. Okay, so let's do that now. And let me turn it over to Angela regarding the annual report. I know it was sent out to everyone. Maybe we could put a link to it just in case folks don't have it right in front of them. But I thought it was, very, very well done. 24 pages, but really highlights the work that we've done so far with 5 meetings from November through August. Highlights some of the committee work as well, with the resources committee as well as the ledge committee. And then some of our 5 recommendations that we discussed at our past meeting as well. So that's kind of a snapshot of everything that we have done to date. So I just want to open it up to see if there are any questions or any clarification or anything. I don't know, Angela or Courtney, you want to walk through any of it, or I guess if you're looking at it, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, we're fine. I think, and Courtney can speak to this better than I can, because she was covering it while I was out, but, I think we got a couple thoughtful comments from folks, but otherwise people seemed happy with it. It seems to, I think, meet folks' expectations. So we're excited to have this as a basis for reports in subsequent years. Anything to add, Courtney?
No, nothing to add. It seems like quite a few people read over it and responded with changes, or that they thought the report looked good as is.
Great. So yeah, Dan, I think we're ready for a vote of approval, and then we'll go ahead and send it to the governor, which, is good timing because we're still having conversations about a broader wildfire package. So, we've brought all of these recommendations to the governor already as part of that conversation, but it'll be nice for them to have the official report. So yeah, I think we can move to vote. And then I think after that, Dan, we should just quickly approve the minutes from last meeting. And then I think you have a quick update on Aaron Kimple and his seat.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
Director Gibbs, I move to approve the report and as presented and move to the governor.
okay. Okay, that motion's been made by Jody, seconded by Hillary. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify as aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition,
Aye.
say no or nay. Okay, the ayes carry it. Thanks so much, and really amazing, great work to get this done, and we can be proud of this initial work that we've done here, and we'll just build on this of what we've done so far. So next item is the approval of the meeting minutes from our meeting from August 4th. Those were also sent out, and are there any questions, or do we have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to vote
Okay, thanks, Jody. Is there a second?
I'll second.
to approve the minute.
Okay, there were some competing factors for seconding. Maybe we'll give it this one to Christy, I think, for the second. But let's see, all those in favor of that motion to approve minutes signify as aye.
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 Is there any opposition?
Aye.
Say no. Okay, the ayes carry it. Okay, great. Next, I want to share with you all that we have a new opening with Aaron Kimple has left to take a new position for another nonprofit, and he was filling the work of Forest Health Collaborative. So he took a new role with Southwest Ecological Research Institute. So really happy for Aaron Kimple for this new position, but this new role he has doesn't really fit within the scope of the seat that he was filling. So we will go and proceed to see if there's anyone interested, obviously, in filling the seat. We've been trying to spread the word. So this is more or less representing Forest Collaborative. So if you know anyone that you think would be really good, please have them go to the website for boards and commissions within the governor's office, and there's a link on there for the Colorado Forest Health Advisory Council, and urge those folks to apply. We would like to, what's the timeline for people to apply? Well, right now, more or less, we would like to get this filled as quickly as possible. And I don't know if Angela or Courtney, if we've heard of any folks that are applying now, but this is pretty recent news that we heard from Aaron that he'll be moving on. So we've been trying to spread the word where we can spread it, that there's an opening now. So this is a governor appointment, as you all know, too. So it's really up to once we feel like we have a decent amount of folks. Sometimes the governor does interviews and sometimes just looks at recommendations that I make, or so it just depends. But yeah, let us know if there are any folks you think should apply. Okay, so with that, if there's no further discussion on Aaron, but I do want to thank Aaron for all of his great work, and he was a great member of this council. So let's move to updates on Wildfire Matters Interim Committee. And I know some of you participated in the meeting just recently, so I'll turn it over to Angela to kind of kick it off, and then others feel free to jump in as well. And I do have to leave a little bit before 9, so I just want to again warn everyone that I'll likely just send a text to Matt that I'm leaving, and then get off. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So, the hot off the press, yesterday was the Wildfire Matters Interim Committee, their final meeting to decide on the 5 bills that they were going to advance to the legislature as a committee. And so I'll put the link in the chat to the legislation that was drafted. And then there are 5 bills that ultimately moved through. So I'll just go over each of those. I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule this morning. So if folks have individual questions about bills, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my abilities. I think as far as process goes, just a reminder that these bills will be introduced in the legislature, and then they will go through the process that every bill goes through, where they're heard in various committees, both in the House and the Senate. There are multiple opportunities for potential amendments. And so as we're going through these, I think everybody should think about the extent to which the council as a whole may wish to support these sort of officially, and we can do that. And we'll formally discuss that at our October 20th meeting, so we have some time to stew about it a little bit. And where possible, I'll try and sort of tie it back to our recommendations, where I think this council was successful in encouraging, certain investments or certain legislative priorities. So again, stop me. And then, Director McCombs provided some great technical testimony yesterday as well. So he's, I'm sure, more than happy to provide his perspective. So it was an interesting meeting. I don't know that I knew what to expect really going in. And it was interesting because only one bill was approved unanimously, 10-0, which was this broad workforce development bill. It's Bill 4 in the list that I put there in the chat. And it's a very complicated bill, so I encourage you all to read through all of these bills, but especially this one. And thanks for the question in the chat, Hillary. Courtney, would you be able to, well, I guess that's a good question before we get started with these bills. Courtney, does the position actually show up on that page, or do folks just apply through the portal? And I guess, we've been talking about this, should folks still be applying, or do we feel that we're sort of at a stage where the governor should be making a selection soon?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first one is easy, that there's just a general form actually that people fill out, and DNR will sift through them to see which ones would be for the Forest Health Council. We had talked about applications being closed since we've already sort of moved through first round screenings. But maybe Dan, if you feel that you want to open it back up, we can do that.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Angela. I wasn't expecting you to be monitoring the chat and doing your great presentation. So I'm totally sorry to interrupt. If you guys already have it filled, then don't worry about it.
There's no one that's filled, and if there's someone that you think would be a great value add to this group, let me know, and we can make sure that they're in the mix. But we would prefer to try to get this filled as quickly as possible. It's not my appointment, it's the governor's appointment. So I have not had any conversations with the governor on this yet. So I would say there's still time.
But just to confirm, you do have applicants currently? Is that what I heard? You did a screening, so you have some applicants that you think are qualified?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, if
Courtney,
there's
would
any,
you mind putting the link in the chat to the application?
Yes, I will do that too.
if there are any rock stars that you think would be great to represent Forest Collaboratives, send them our way still.
And we'll chat offline. Dan, maybe we can chat offline and just decide on sort of a deadline, and we'll send that out to folks so that people aren't, leading any colleagues or other folks astray in applying. Okay, so Wildfire Matters bills. So the first one, Bill 4, again, as I said, encourage you to read the draft text of each of these bills, which you just click on the actual bill sort of title on that page that I linked, and that gets you to sort of the bill topic, and that gets you to the bill draft. And then if you see on the right-hand side of that page, the bill number under a heading called fiscal note, that'll show you the fiscal note. So that's the estimated cost of these proposed bills. So if you're not super familiar with the state legislative process, that's obviously another piece of information that folks are going to use as they decide whether to support these bills moving forward. So Bill 4, as I said, it's very complicated, but it certainly takes to heart 2 of the recommendations that this council made. Our first legislative recommendation was to invest in forestry education, which this bill does. And our second recommendation, and I'm not sure if I'll get the language right, but was to invest in workforce development programs, such as the Colorado Youth Corps Association or SWIFT, and it does that as well. So I think, you should feel very good that 2 of those things have made it in. So the broad, again, complicated, it does several things. I can summarize those briefly as it requires the State Forest Service to develop a forestry / wildfire mitigation educational sort of package for high school guidance counselors to give to high school students to explain that career trajectory and hopefully encourage some folks to seek it out. It creates an internship in the State Forest Service, which provides a 50-50 match to forestry companies or timber companies to hire on interns. It includes $1 million per year of general fund for the COSWAP program in the DNR. And so again, to jog your memories, COSWAP does fund workforce development, both through the Youth Corps and then through SWIFT at our Department of Corrections, as well as workforce development training. So folks can apply to say, send a community group to a chainsaw training or a wildfire or even a prescribed burn training, for example. And then on the sort of formal higher education side, it provides some resources to expand or create new community college programs for forestry education, as well as potentially to acquire another simulator. So these simulators allow folks to train on forestry equipment, in a safe environment. It also specifically singles out Colorado Mountain College for potentially creating a new program, subject to appropriations, and then also directs higher education to establish a recruitment program. And this is interesting. In the language in the bill, it says for wildfire mitigation educators specifically, and I do think perhaps that's one place in the bill where we could, advocate to tweak the language to include forestry more broadly. So that's sort of a point of conversation. And Jody, I'm sure I see you nodding along. I think some good homework for the legislative committee could be to really come through these and see if there are places where we want to advocate for some changes. So that's Bill 4. Does anybody have questions about it?
Angela, hi, good morning. It's Ben Tisdale. You right? I listened into the committee hearing yesterday, and I was surprised by how much discussion there was, but on some of the topics, it sounded like they might also shift some of the responsibility to additional other community colleges or like Red Rocks. There was a conversation about what is the name of Red Rocks Community College and stuff, but I guess that the core idea will obviously go through hearings and shift and given public testimony or the feeling of the legislators. But what on this one, do you think it'll stay with the Mountain College or go to additional other educational places?
So the bill is interesting because it actually has two separate sections on this. The first section simply directs, and I'm looking at the fiscal note here, it directs the Department of Higher Education to enter into a fee-for-service contract with the community college system to create a new forestry program and expand an existing forestry program. So in my mind, that could be any community college. And then there's a separate section that specifically directs them to provide a state grant to create a new forestry program at Colorado Mountain College. So I think they're two sort of separate things, but it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I must admit, this part of the bill, I have no idea how the community colleges or Department of Higher Education in general is feeling about the sort of level of direction there.
Yeah, cool.
So
Thanks.
with Dan Gunn, I'll help you out with facilitating here, Paige, and then we'll go to Rep Cutter.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, this and depending on which other bills came out, this actually is kind of a question for you, Matt, which is, does the State Forest Service have current capacity to implement this if it passes? Or is that contemplated as part of this legislation?
Yeah, if I recall, there is some administrative support associated with at least the internship program component. So we would have some additional capacity to stand up that program. But we would also, it names both the industry as well as nonprofits as potential recipients of those intern dollars. So we would be working closely with CTIA as well as nonprofits that have a vested interest or place in that kind of wildfire mitigation or forestry space to leverage both of those entities. But it does come with some administrative capacity. We feel confident that we'll be able to stand it up, and it dovetails nicely with a sizable increase in the internship program that we're making in partnership with the Warner College that will be available for students in and outside of CSU going forward.
Great. Thanks.
You bet. Representative Cutter.
Good morning. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that I am sponsoring that bill, but it's along with Senator Jaquez Lewis. And we ended up squishing two bills together. We introduced them as the simulator piece with Senator Jaquez Lewis, and then I was going to work on the workforce piece, the more specific internship and all that. And we ended up smishing them together, which does seem to make sense. But she worked quite a bit on the front end. I've been pretty occupied since it's an election year. And so I haven't been able to work as closely as I would like to. So all of that is to say that I'm really, really open and willing to consider broadening it. I'm not quite sure why she narrowed in on Pike's Colorado Mountain College, to be honest. So I am really willing to examine that more thoroughly and work to make it the best bill possible. So I just wanted you all to know that.
Thank you, Representative Cutter. Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thank you, Director McCombs. I want to just thank for the leadership and support from Representative Cutter. She came to our legislative committee last week and we talked about the bill, and I want to thank her for sponsoring this. And I'm sure we can have these conversations in our legislative committee and get you some of our feedback. And we just really thank you for coming to our committee and listening and sponsoring this bill. We're really thrilled. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Commissioner.
you. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Representative. Any other questions before we move on? Angela.
Thanks. So Bill 6 is the next one. This one is fairly straightforward, and it's not exactly in our lane, but important for us to be aware of. This would create a pilot program for wildfire detection cameras in the Center for Excellence in the Division of Fire Prevention and Control at Department of Public Safety. You've all probably heard something about wildfire detection cameras, for instance, in California, that can recognize ignitions and pinpoint their locations. So it provides $2 million. I think it's maybe over 4 years to develop that pilot program and establish some cameras around the state, and see how they work. So that's over on the public safety side. Any questions on that one? Alrighty. So the next is Bill 8. This is a bill supporting the timber industry. So the topic is timber industry incentives. And And really, it's a bit of a, rehashing of a bill that was introduced last year. I believe it was 1011. It provides a 20% tax credit for the cost of forestry equipment for forestry companies, up to $10,000 a year. So that's sort of the incentive piece to help those companies grow. It also contains provisions for an internship program. And again, Rep. Cutter, you can, provide more color to this, but there was some conversation about potentially combining that piece with the internship in your bill to avoid duplication.
Yeah, I think we'll probably talk. I liked the incentive piece being separate, and I think that's the reason they were separate bills, but it might make sense to, I agree, the internship is very, it's duplicative. So I think we'll have some discussion about that.
Great, thanks. And this internship concept, again, that's part of one of the recommendations that you all made as a council. Recommendation 5 to create incentives for private industry, both logging and grazing, included, that state cost share internship program, and did also reference 1166 from last year, which provided that tax credit. So that's made its way through as well. Any questions on that bill? All right, then moving on to Bill 9. This is incentives for the state nursery. There was some pretty lively discussion on this, so feel free to provide any perspective that you have, Director McCombs. But it did make it through, I believe, on a vote of 6-4, and it would appropriate, I think, on the order of sort of $2 million to supplement the $5 million that was passed last year for nursery upgrades and improvements. Again, sort of, putting it all in context, the State Forest Service had originally estimated about $10 million needed to fully refurbish and expand the state nursery to potentially double production. And so this would get us, I think, a bit closer to that while the initial work is still being done on planning.
And just for folks' awareness, we are in the early stages. I guess we're in the final stages of procuring an analysis with support from nursery managers from federal facilities in both Idaho and Nebraska. And we'll have a much clearer picture of what the actual fiscal need will be to fully revitalize and retrofit almost every component of the state nursery. And so that was a commitment that I made and testimony, and we'll follow up with that with both this group as well as the legislators on the committee. There was some trepidation. It's always a challenge to go and ask for additional funding when you have a sizable investment already made. And so I think it's incumbent upon the State Forest Service, and we're doing so, to bring forth clarity on exactly how these funds will be invested, and then of course what the results will be as far as production and our ability to be a huge part of the reforestation efforts, as well as a variety of cool things coming online with urban and community forestry. So any questions on that bill beyond what I just mentioned? Amy.
Yeah, thanks, Director McCombs. I'm just haven't been able to follow the interim committee, and I was just curious with the 6-4 split, was the opposition just regarding the funding from last year and then coming for another 2 million, or was there any other discussion about this bill that would be good for this committee to hear?
There was one vote in particular that called out, I think, some of the underlying, and Representative Cutter, you can weigh in too if you have different thoughts, but there was definitely one comment that suggested we'd like to know what you're going to do with this initial investment before we appropriate any other funds, which I think is a fair comment and something that we're working feverishly to address at the moment. But I think that was probably the larger motivation. But Rep. Cutter, what do you think?
I agree. You're spot on. I think that's the biggest concern.
And a fair one at that. We invite the skepticism. Any other questions on the, I will say though, I was extremely excited, as you can imagine, that we continue to have momentum around this issue of reforestation and green infrastructure. I think the state has an enormous opportunity to be a major leader nationally, and of course to the benefit of our citizens. So I had fun and some tit for tat with a member on the committee on this exact conversation. And I feel like it made some good headway. Let's see here, Commissioner Cooper, and then we'll go to Commissioner Tisdale.
I think Ben beat me to it.
Great.
Okay, well, one of you.
Well, then I'll go.
Okay.
Just in all of these conversations, and I don't see Selwyn on, but it occurs to me of the importance of really reaching out to the tribes directly and engaging tribal members and giving them the opportunity to get involved and on one hand, use their knowledge that's been handed down for generations into this industry and into these efforts, and also give them the opportunity to explore career paths, et cetera. So I hope that somehow we can, as much as we're directing these to community colleges, it oftentimes takes a very specific targeted outreach to get that information to the tribes. And I'd be happy to help work on those efforts if we could get some additional language in, and maybe it's already in there. I haven't read through all the language yet.
That's absolutely great feedback, and I think we'll capture that certainly in our notes today, and hopefully use that as a mechanism to keep that at the forefront of our minds as we rough these out through the session. And I think we have some great inroads, right, and with those communities around some very cool projects going on in Gunnison County, as well as down on tribal lands in particular. So that's a great point. Thank you, Commissioner Tisdale.
Thanks, Director. Yeah, I would just say, in addition to that vote analysis, I mean, one of those votes will become a yes as soon as this report that you are, of where the money has been spent thus far from last year comes out. So it was kind of a let's see what where the money has gone so far. And I would characterize some of the conversation and the voting from yesterday as this was the first time that that committee, Lisa, you can maybe help me analyze further, but some of it was surprisingly more political than I anticipated, right? The split votes, but where there was consensus on the 5 going forward. But there was some interesting conversation, to be sure.
Thanks, Commissioner. I would heartily agree. Any other comments before we move on in the interest of time? Hearing none, back to you, Angela.
Thanks. So the last one, Bill 10, this is on fire investigations. So this would appropriate about $3 million, I believe, per year to fund, or at least for the next 2 years, to fund really massive expansion of the fire investigations program within Department of Public Safety. So it looks like they're estimating bringing on over 11 full-time staff. And for context, again, this is out of our wheelhouse a little bit. The state, I believe, has 1 full-time fire investigator on staff. So, you may have seen some articles about it being difficult to identify the cause of fire ignitions in many cases. And some folks say that's partly because, we as a state don't have a lot of people working on this. So that would try and alleviate that issue a little bit. So again, not totally in our lane, but want you to be aware of that. And I'm not an expert on this bill, so if folks have questions, I'm happy to connect you with colleagues at DFPC.
We do have Director Morgan on, as well as Vaughn. So
of course, yeah.
Any specific questions, they would. Director Morgan did a great job of engaging with the community on this issue, and in particular, was there, in fact, or coincidentally, there was a story I think on Next last night about fire investigation training that West Metro was conducting. So it was apropos. Director Morgan, do you have any comments you'd like to share?
Not a lot to share, Matt. I appreciate that. It's kind of been hit. There's been a lot of media around cause and origin of fires, and Colorado Public Radio, National Public Radio. I believe it's 7 of the 10 largest fires in Colorado's history have gone listed as undetermined as cause and origin. So as Angela said, there is one investigator and one dog that we have. There's only the arson dog. There's only one other dog in the state, and that's West Metro Fire. And obviously, West Metro can't, when we're shorthanded, which with one person is most of the time, we can't ask West Metro to go around the state and with their dog and do the work. So this gives us 2 fire investigators in each quadrant of the state, along with the dogs to go along with it, and the ability to build some investigation teams using cause and origin from both state, local, but cause and origin, interview interrogation with law enforcement, and then working with the attorneys in the DA's offices to build 4 teams across the state. So happy to answer any questions anybody has them. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
And also, if I could say, Matt, I'm glad to hear your voice. You sound a lot.
I feel a little bit
you're
better
feeling
today.
better.
Thank you very much. For those that weren't aware, I was coming off a COVID infection, and I was really worried about being coherent yesterday. All right, that aside, any final questions on the interim committee work this summer or the bills that were voted out yesterday? No, hearing none, I would just reflect that again, at the outset, Angela spoke to the idea that much of the work that was recommended by this body, much of the issues that were brought forward by this body were taken very seriously because they were addressed comprehensively in many instances. And that, I think, speaks to this group's ability to continue to drive stakeholder-driven solutions on key issues. So I hope you do feel very good about the work you did throughout the year and how it's being reflected in potential legislation going into the session in January. We'll go to Commissioner Cooper and then Commissioner Layden.
Thanks. I know that this bill was not was pulled from the committee consideration, but I wonder if there was any discussion yesterday about the WUI code board bill, or is that just waiting for the next round?
I can address that. And then I was just putting a note in, I have to leave, but I'm glad I caught that question. So we will be, obviously that is a very, I think really important bill, but also pretty controversial. There's lots of strong opinions. And so, understandably. And so I have pulled that from the committee and we'll be running it as a regular bill, just so that we have the opportunity to do some more, deeper stakeholding work before we actually get it on bill paper. So I was responding to a lot of feedback from the initial stakeholding meeting, and but yeah, we'll definitely be moving forward. And I was just popping in the chat that any of you, I'll put my number in and my email. Any of you, please feel free to reach out anytime with questions or concerns or input on any of these pieces of legislation. I'm sponsoring a few of them and can direct you to others if necessary on other pieces, but really, really appreciate your input. And yes, we absolutely did take you all seriously. So thanks for all the great work this year.
Thanks so much, Representative Cutter, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining today. We really appreciate it. Commissioner Layden.
Yeah, thank you so much. And again, a huge congratulations to the group for getting through the conversation and providing some really excellent pieces of legislation for this session to consider. I just wanted to add, and maybe for a point of conversation, Douglas County did increase its aerial support, has put out about 11 fires, including one in Jefferson County that you'll never hear about because they went out hard, heavy, and fast. But one thing we heard from our wildfire initiative was this statewide potential desire to look at a shaded fuel break, particularly along the Pike National Forest, that would allow aerial support from any jurisdiction and from the state's aerial support to really see what's happening from the sky down to any sort of significant wildfire. So I don't know how much conversation there's been around shaded fuel breaks, but even from a federal and congressional level, I know that's an important part of the conversation.
Thanks, Commissioner, for those comments. I think vegetation management and the role of forest management in particular did come up in the conversation yesterday, sort of obliquely and somewhat targetedly in other instances. And I think we'll continue to talk about where we can focus our relatively robust resources to create that vegetation-based infrastructure that will assist in wildfire mitigation for communities like there in Douglas and Jefferson County. So I appreciate that comment. I think I could go off on a tangent because we're having some conversations internally with our federal partners at the State Forest Service and in conversations with DFPC and others about how do we continue to prioritize within the 10-year strategy areas, as well as the priority areas identified by COSWAP, and to continue to sharpen our cooperation, especially with our federal partners who control so much of the focus. And I think that's something I'll be bringing to this group here in time, some concepts around some further prioritization. The risk work has been done. Now it's where do we prioritize our efforts around vegetation management, as well as continue our outreach on home hardening and ignition zone work. So I appreciate that comment very much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any other thoughts on the legislative session? Or excuse me, the interim work as we lead into the legislative session? Hearing none, what we have left on our agenda, we do want to save some time at the end for any public comment that may be waiting. But we have a review and discussion around the agenda for our October 20th meeting, as well as its location. So I might turn that back to you, Angela, to lead that discussion on potential agenda items for the 20th.
Great, thanks so much. So it looks like I have screen sharing disabled, unfortunately, but I'll just throw this draft agenda in the chat. So we have a few items that I've been thinking we should cover in our October 20th meeting, and hopefully folks got that Zoom invite. It looked like the calendaring just hadn't been done properly. So I think that was resent yesterday. Hopefully you can all attend that. If anybody has major conflicts, please let us know. So let's see. So the couple items that I was thinking we should cover in that 3-hour meeting are firstly to agree on a strategy for supporting Wildfire Matters interim committee bills, if we do agree to as a full council, as well as other forestry bills. So, remember that these 5 will be moving forward, but other members can introduce their own bills. So we may see some other forestry related bills this session, and we should all agree on a strategy for supporting them as a full council versus how folks may want to interact with bills as individuals. Second, we should identify priority issues for 2023. So, what specific issues, perhaps it's shaded fuel breaks, do we want to do some council education on, get some experts in to discuss those, and eventually inform committee work. So our legislative committee and our committee on leveraging resources. Again, it's hard to believe, but the work we put in our October, sort of winter and spring meetings will all feed into next summer's Wildfire Matters interim review committee. And then we should finalize 2023 meeting dates and locations. That's a discussion point next if we have some time for it, but we can also punt it to the October meeting. And then I was thinking it might be nice to get a quick update from our Colorado Forest Collaboratives Network. They've been hosting some regional forums. They do have an all-state meeting, unfortunately, I think after we meet next, but they still might have some insights. So any other agenda items that folks would like to add or revise, given what we've suggested?
Any other topics for conversation folks would like to engage on? And yes, this is for the October 20th meeting.
And is there a plan to still have stay remote for these meetings? Okay.
So October, yes, but the next point of conversation is in 2023, we really want some in-person meetings. So we want to have a conversation about how to make those happen.
So I don't hear any additional topics, Angela. So I think we're good for now, but don't hesitate to reach out to Courtney or Angela or myself any additional items that might surface between now and the next week or two.
It might be good to have an update on the staffing strategies for the forest, the State Forest Service. I know that that's
Sure.
been a topic, and just kind of have a general update on staffing strategies and outcomes, so that this council has an understanding of where that's going and how it's shaping up.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. I'd be happy to provide some visibility on that for folks. Just general awareness. We have negotiated the initial tranche of dollars around a GNA, a Good Neighbor Authority agreement that's going to build some staffing in the State Forest Service to support the federal mission. That was a $2 million allocation over 5 years that came in right at the tail end of the fiscal year. We're hoping for an additional $3 million, and we're in conversation. I'm saying this because John's on the call. We're in conversations with our friends at the BLM as well about how we might explore growing capacity as well, really as a release valve for the federal agencies that are also struggling to hire. And then there's some pretty cool stuff happening around budget modernization and such. Thanks, John. That I'd love to share once we've had a chance to engage with staff and CSU and some others on, if it's right, but I could bring that forward as well, Commissioner. So if you'll capture that, Courtney and Angela, for just a quick check-in, because we'll have some more information at that point in time.
Great, thank you.
Director McCombs, that's a great point, Commissioner Tisdale. I also wonder if we could invite this U.S. Forest Service to potentially, present to the council on the hiring challenges they may be experiencing as they look to implement these historic federal dollars. That's something we all might be curious about. So we could extend that invitation and hopefully learn more from them.
One other thing I thought of, I'm sorry I didn't raise my hand, maybe an update on prescribed fire efforts and the crossover with the Fire Commission on that topic. There is a new subcommittee there that, and some overlap, of course, on that topic with forest health and prescribed fire. So I don't know how long our October 20th meeting is, but since maybe we want to pare down the number of topics, and if people are interested in different things, have a separate breakout session on topics if there's too much time estimated.
Well, Vaughn's got his hand up, so maybe Vaughn has a quick chime in on RX here. Go ahead, Vaughn.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, I was going to mention that. You kind of queued me up for that. But yeah, one of the 3 subcommittees that the Fire Commission has identified as priorities for this year includes prescribed fire, the use of fire as a tool to, kind of make sure that stays on folks' agenda. Director McCombs, Director Morgan kind of led the charge at our summer meeting to get that group going. They've had one initial meeting. Actually, we have one meeting here coming up in a couple hours. So yeah, I just wanted to reemphasize, where that group was looking at that, and then maybe as far as next meetings, we can kind of report out what that group has done, and then if there's any input from this side of the house. So thanks.
Thanks, Vaughn. I think that's a standing issue we could probably check in on, Commissioner Tisdale, as progress occurs, acknowledging that there's members in this group. There are also members of that subcommittee in the Fire Commission as well, because there is obviously a focus and the need for us to work that issue from 2 different angles, both the fire problem as well as the forest health and watershed health side. Any other topics coming into mind that you might want to throw in the room here? So I would like to take a point of executive privilege here and just reflect briefly in the next 3 minutes before we have some public comment time on the National Association of State Foresters meeting that I attended last week in Stevenson, Washington. All of the national key leaders in the U.S. Forest Service were there, as well as key industry partners and nonprofit partners, senior leadership. And I just wanted to reflect back what an incredible honor it is to sort of to serve in this role on your behalf, but also just to hear the feedback from just a variety of entities about the immense focus and interest in what's going on in Colorado. So I wanted to make sure folks are just intimately aware of the reverberations of the work that we're doing on so many key issues across the state. and the aggressive approach we're taking on solution building and implementation. It's pretty exciting. And I had conversations with a couple deputy chiefs and some senior leaders in the department, and there's a lot of focus on the work that we're doing. And there's also a lot of focus on the conversations that are happening currently in the media and across the state as it relates to the inherent tension associated with forest management at broad scales in a community of people that have a wide disparate perspective on the sort of what approaches we should be taking where and how. And so I put that out there because it was interesting that so many folks nationally were focused on our dialogue regionally here, both in the media and certainly in our different corners and circles that we operate in. So for this group, I think it does present an opportunity, hopefully, for us to continue to have really transparent, frank dialogue from the different value places that we come from around broad-based forest management, because that's what we're talking about in many instances in the 10-year strategy areas, the co-swap priority areas, and with the sizable funding that's come out of the legislature and Congress. So I hope that we can pull some of that conversation internal and help shape some of that dialogue and thinking statewide, knowing that the things that we do here in Colorado have rather sizable reverberations across the country in policy circles associated with the work that we do and the issues we focus on. So just want to make sure you knew people are paying very much attention to the work this committee is doing, the work that that all of you are doing in the different circles in which you operate, and certainly the work that we're doing together as a state. Do we have any public? So that was completely self-indulgent. I appreciate you letting me take that opportunity to reflect that to you. Do we have any public comment that has been waiting in the wings here before we close? Hearing none. Do we have any final thoughts or salutations from this group before we entertain a motion to adjourn? Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
I'd just like to once again just say what a great opportunity and how grateful I am to work with alongside all of you. When I think back and look at all that report and the conversations we have, I just like, wow, we really did have some great conversations. And I just want to just kind of give everybody a big round of applause. I appreciate all your time and efforts and the respectful dialogue that we're having. I think that's really important. And I just want to thank you all. It's really a privilege.
Thanks, Commissioner. I definitely share that sentiment, and I can see by the nodding of heads others do as well. So in the chat, Angela has posted the proposed meeting dates. If you could do a solid and feedback any major issues that you might have with individual dates to Courtney, that would be helpful so we can solidify some of those proposed meetings, start that process now so we're not wrestling around dates as a group when we get together on the 20th. Angela or Courtney, did you have any final thoughts for the group that I may have missed?
Just confirming that the October 20th date is just virtual. And again, you should have all received a Zoom invite yesterday, an updated one. So let us know if you have major conflicts with that. And then, yeah, as I said in the chat, we'd really like to move to a couple hybrid meetings next year. We don't have a budget for those, so be thoughtful about it. But if you would love to host us in your community, if you have a good space for hybrid meetings, please let us know and we'll start those conversations next meeting.
I'll volunteer Larimer County right off the bat. We have our new Office of Emergency Management building, which we could also drive up, and we have some really great Wi-Fi and some meeting rooms with a lot of technology. And I'll right off the bat, it's right off I-25 and 34. But we can also, if you like to, schedule any tours or any work, or maybe come up and see the forestry nursery or something. I know Director McCombs volunteering you, but I thought it's all in the same area. So I'm willing to volunteer our facilities for one of those meetings, or, if
Sure.
that works for everybody. But
No, I really appreciate that, Commissioner. And yes, we'd absolutely be happy to dovetail any type of field visit as well to make good use of everybody's time and travel. If the nursery visit was in the offing as well.
Yeah, and I'll volunteer for another meeting because I would love to come up to Larimer and see the nursery. But if everybody wants to come all the way down to the other part of the state, I'll volunteer the Telluride area.
And I'm so glad my commissioner colleagues are so proud of their counties. I'm proud of their counties as well. I think it'd be great to visit you out there, Hillary, and in Larimer County. I'll throw Douglas County in the mix as well. Particularly around the Pike National Forest, I think it'd be a great opportunity to have you all out. Lots of options.
We are in great shape. Thank you so much, commissioners, for volunteering your resources and your communities as host sites. We have captured that, and we will make sure to look for those opportunities to take advantage of your generosity. With that, it is 9:29 and folks are starting to drop off. May I please have a motion to adjourn? Unless
I
there's any
move to
final.
adjourn.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Second from Commissioner Cooper. We are adjourned. Thank you everyone for your time. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.